Turmoil in the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, including a mass exodus. Let's talk about it. I'm Melba Pearson, also known as the Resident Legal Diva, and I am so excited to be with Dina, who I know you've seen her on a bunch of different videos. You've seen me as well, but now we are doing Twin Powers Activate, Shape
Yes.
of the Resistance.
Yes. That's
So
awesome. We need it. We need the resistance.
we really do.
Yeah.
We really do. So it's really come to light over the course of the last few weeks that there's been an exodus within the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. And it's really scary as somebody who has practiced civil rights law and just, again, being in that activist space along with the NAACP and other organizations where you'd always traditionally would look to the Department of Justice for relief. They were the ones if there was a voting rights issue, as in, people were not being allowed to vote, or there was improper gerrymandering or weirdness going on with, basically disenfranchising a bunch of people, not allowing them to vote. That would be the Department of Justice investigating. If it comes to hate crimes, as in even some of the cold cases from the civil rights era, the first civil rights era, because make no mistake, we're in the second civil rights movement, but be that as it may, they were critical in these investigations of Klan members and others who were committing racially motivated hate crimes. Now, if they're not handling that, who's going to do that work? They do the work around discrimination, making sure that employers aren't discriminating against people based on religion, race, ethnicity, gender identity, all of that. If they're not doing that work, who is? Human trafficking, which again, you would think is something that should be top of mind for this administration, but yet they have made the department just so inhospitable that literally there's 380 attorneys or so there, and now we're looking at an exodus that has left it down to 140. I mean, Dina, what do you think?
Mhm. It's when you start to dismantle the protections, that's how you dismantle democracy. And here, what's happening here at the Civil Rights Division, the Department of Justice, I don't think we've even seen the end of the exodus. As you said, we've seen already 100 people leaving in a very short period of time because he redesigned the mission of the department. He said it was going to be, instead of combating all those very important discrimination that you said, instead it's going to focus on transgender athletes. I mean, we're talking about, there were 2, I think, in Maine. The fact that you even need hundreds of attorneys for it, forget about it. It's not even true. They were going to focus on ending DEI initiatives, which is basically, again, the reverse of rooting out discrimination. I mean, Attorney General Pam Bondi has talked about how they're trying to root out anti-Christian bias, which goes into the Project 2025 Christian nationalist objective. They say they're going to focus on anti-Semitism, which is obviously a very important issue, but the way that Trump does it tends to be actually weaponizing it. So these lawyers who are career lawyers there don't want to do the work of ending DEI initiatives, right? Or going after some transgender athlete that may not even exist as an issue. They know the point. He may use language like anti-Semitism, which is important, but they know the point, which is going to a Christian nationalist Project 2025 goal, and they don't want to be a part of it. We have talked a lot about how firing federal employees is so harmful for the government because of their institutional knowledge. You can definitely say this for these career lawyers who are there regardless of who is in charge, who help make our everyday living safer in a way of not having discrimination. And it's not, they're even also separately kind of dismantling the voting section of that division. Again, their way of trying to make voting less fair by taking away the very people who are protecting discrimination in our voting. And I know that Popak just did a video recently about the Republican National Committee case that might be going up to the Supreme Court trying to attack mail-in ballots. But this is another way. If you dismantle the oversight by the Department of Justice voting division, you are going to have these states, these counties do, target the communities that vote Democrat. This is how they enable it. So we're seeing an assault on our justice system in a way that aligns with the Project 2025 goal. We're seeing attorneys just leave in mass. And in this respect, sometimes people ask, and I don't know what you think about this, don't resign. They'll say, like, don't resign. It's better if you stay, better if you fight. But in this respect, if they truly have to take these kinds of cases, right, that are maybe going to, and if you think that there's not a case where a white person has said there's discrimination, the Supreme Court just heard that case a few weeks ago where a white person tried to claim discrimination. So the Department of Justice can very well try to make havoc on employers with this, with this reverse discrimination type cases. So maybe in this case, it's good to have no lawyers who can do the job. If they're going to not be able to do the work that they want to do, maybe it is better to quit and not carry out his orders. I mean, you were the deputy director of the ACLU. So this is very much the work that you spent your life on. What
Yeah.
would you think about this?
And that's what breaks my heart. I mean, I spent several years as the deputy director of the ACLU of Florida. And again, so many of our cases, we were looking to the feds for relief in terms of, voting issues, in terms of prison conditions. Now, people are like, why should we care about felons? Blah, blah, blah. But listen, at the end of the day, the majority of people that go to prison come back home. So, how do you want them coming back into the community? Do you want them to be a hot mess because they were in these horrible conditions, like animal like conditions? And so they've adapted to that kind of mindset and they're going to bring that home to the community? Or do you want people that have been treated humanely, given the opportunity to address whatever issues got them into the system and then come back to the community as a productive member of society? I mean, that generally is what we would want in our system. And now, when you have situations where there's going to be no oversight of prison conditions, you could have prison guards raping inmates. I hate to say it, but that's one of the
Wow.
real
Yeah.
things that
Mhm.
that has been prosecuted and dealt with in the past. You can have poor eating conditions where you can be served expired food just because you're in prison. So all of these things are part of the oversight that the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division would do, and now stripping that away is incredibly troublesome. Also, when you think about the pattern and practice investigations having to do with police departments to see if they have a pattern and practice of harming different marginalized groups, we've seen that in Memphis. We saw that in the wake of Breonna Taylor in Louisville, where they came in and did an investigation to figure out if there was a pattern in practice. They found out in St. Louis that there was a pattern in practice of the city basically having excessive fees on a majority Black population, basically making them broke, and then also having excessive enforcement, and they were able to deal with that. So I think that if you're somebody with a conscience, which obviously if you went to do civil rights work at the Department of Justice, you're not doing it to get rich. Let's be very clear. Like
Mhm.
you'll pay your bills, but barely. Okay. You're doing this because you're passionate about the work, you're passionate about justice, and you want to see everyone be truly treated equally. But when you start to get these orders from on high, where it's almost like ignore the evidence, ignore centuries of law, and just do what I'm telling you to do, follow my orders, which we've heard that before and we know how it ended based on history. I think it is incumbent on people of good conscience to walk away, because if you're being asked to do something that, number one, is unethical, and number two, is contrary to your values, number one, you're going to have a hard time looking at yourself in the mirror and sleeping at night. That is
Mhm.
a level of stress. Like, we've all been at jobs we hated, and you know how you get home and you just can't wait to, like, have a
Yeah.
cocktail, and then the next morning
Mhm.
you're like in hives because you don't want to go to the job that day, right? You can't that is too much stress on a human being. And so after a while it's going to wear on you, and you're just better off walking away and finding another way to support these communities versus staying and carrying out these unlawful orders, these unconstitutional orders.
Yeah. Yes. And I think that I was just, I think that them quitting then is the right thing to do, because then they can't do the work. And groups like the ACLU, the nonprofits, the DNC, all of these groups are going to have to step in and protect voting rights and protect people's civil rights. It cannot replace the work of the federal government. The federal government has a budget, has a capacity, the ability in a way that no nonprofit can really fill. But if you haven't donated yet to the ACLU, now is the time, because they are going to have to fill this gap. We have to fill this gap. Even if you're waiting until the midterms, it is too long when people's civil rights are at risk. And so we're going to have to fill the gap there. People are going to have to subscribe here to Legal AF so we can keep everybody updated. The amount of stuff that Trump is doing, he's just throwing things at you and it's on purpose. It's to distract. It's to, get people talking about something else that's shiny in the corner. The work of the people at the Department of Justice and the civil rights with voting rights affects people in an everyday level, but maybe it doesn't grab the headlines as much as maybe some of his other actions. So I'm glad that Melba, you and I were able to break it down here for Legal AF. Be sure to subscribe. We will break down all the legal developments as they come on this channel.
In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.